when I'm eating my raw meat, I am eating this with the utmost highest sense of gratitude, knowing that this flesh came from a live animal, that this life had a...
And when I'm beating somebody up in my work building, been doing that with so much respect. What's up, guys? This is Mike from Annoying Vegans. We bring you perspective, validation, and laughs. And I wasn't planning to come on to do another solo episode, but Jubilee just released a vegan-related video. And I've been waiting for them to do this for years because it's been a long time since they've done one. And I had to come on and react to it. So if you don't know about Jubilee, they're a channel about conversations. So they oftentimes bring together people of opposing viewpoints so that they can have a conversation and come to some agreement on certain things. They also bring together people of the same identity group and prove that they don't all think the same. Example, they had an episode a few years ago about do all vegans think the same? I mentioned it in our first episode, how one of them was kind of representing themselves as an annoying vegan. It was a profound episode to kind of highlight the fact that vegans don't all think the same. They also had an episode like the one we're going to watch tonight called Middle Ground, where they had vegans and meat eaters together, and they would come together and show that they have similarities, you know, proving that people of opposing viewpoints can have some middle ground, even though they disagree, and also proving that people of the same identity group can have differences. And they also had one about it was a game to guess like who the mole was. The mole was a meat eater, and there was one meat eater and like 6 vegans, and they had to try to figure out who the meat eater was. That was more of a fun one. So that being said, it's been several years since the last Middle Ground. It was the last released on 2018, I believe. Now it's 2024. Things have changed a lot in the vegan world. There's different topics to be discussed in 2024. I don't know any of these people except for Tori. You might have remembered I name dropped Tori in our vegan fitness episode as somebody to check out for like vegan bodybuilding. He's in here obviously representing the vegan side. There's 3 other vegans, and there's 4 vegans and 4 meat eaters. So let's see what we're going to get into today.
Animals are put on Earth to be eaten by humans. Step forward if you agree with the prompt.
Okay, so the first prompt is animals are put on Earth to be eaten by humans. I'm obviously not stepping forward for this one. I'm not a religious person, so there's a lot of argument that I've heard before that God put animals on this earth so that we could eat them. I certainly don't agree with that. Even if I wasn't necessarily a religious person, I think that every living being has their own purpose. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people, if you're listening to this, agree with that. So my argument would be animals have families too. They want to love and procreate and live and enjoy their life just as much as we do. I don't believe that their purpose of existence is to serve us. I mean, I just don't. I think that is kind of a arrogant perspective to have as a species, that another species was put on this earth specifically for us. And I might even take it a step further and say that if you want to argue that something was put on this earth specifically for us, it would be plants, because they come from the earth. I mean, animals come from the earth too, but the nutrients that they get come from plants. And that's another reason I would kind of argue to be more plant-based, whole food plant-based, is because all of those ingredients, you know, are non-manufactured natural ingredients, and they come from the earth. So I just went on a tangent, but yeah, I'm not stepping forward for this, obviously.
So I'm Bella. I am a carnivore, so basically that
Girl, you're a carnivore? You don't eat any vegetables at all? You don't eat carrots? You only eat meat? Nothing else but meat? Girl, that's crazy. How are you a carnivore? I mean, let me see your fangs. Let me see your nails, girl. Like, I mean, do you cut your own meat? Do you not cook your own meat? Are you a raw carnivore? I'm sorry, I'm going in already.
Of eating only animal foods for the past 6 years. I was also vegan for 6 years.
Okay, so we got one of those former vegans. Listen, it's okay if you're a former vegan. No judgment. Okay, obviously there's a little bit of judgment, but I'm interested to see what you'll have to say.
So I feel like I do have a pretty good sense of how I feel, my health, and the purpose of the food that I'm eating with both lifestyles. So when I was vegan, I actually lost my period. So I was no longer fertile. I had extreme skin issues, psoriasis, cystic acne. I had also mental health issues. I used to be a classical pianist, and I studied at Juilliard for 2 years. Yeah, so like, I just remember going on stage, and I couldn't remember the pieces that I was supposed to perform. And I was panicking. I was like, what is going on with my memory? Why can't I focus in the practice room? And why am I feeling so nervous and anxious right before stepping out? So to me, that says a lot about whether or not the foods I'm eating are supporting me. So when
It's interesting that I'm not going to deny her experience with tying that back to her diet. It's interesting that she would attribute the mental issues she had with her piano performance and attribute it to her diet. What other factors were happening in her life? I mean, I'd be curious. I'm just curious how she derived at the conclusion that it was as a result of the food that
I
she was
stopped
eating.
the vegan diet and went fully carnivore. The difference in my mental health, in my confidence, in my fertility as well.
I'm sorry. If you're a carnivore, how the hell are you getting fiber? Can somebody answer that for me in the comment section? Like, if you're on the carnivore diet, are you aware about the fact that you're not getting any fiber? And is that like okay?
Was just night and day.
It's kind of amazing how that works, huh?
Yeah.
As coming from a hunting and conservation background and also in ag, yeah, you'll definitely learn where the denser protein comes from, the higher quality protein. I personally have been for the last 7 or so years, but basically my whole life, I've fed my family off of almost 100% wild game of some type, whether it be deer or elk or pigs or ducks. You definitely have a
I had a roommate once in college that would cook deer. That shit smelled horrifying.
closer feel to what you're consuming when you have full control over it. You're not buying it from somebody at the grocery store that who knows where it came from, how it was handled before it got there.
Well, it's an interesting perspective because I always say, I've said a few times on the podcast here that if we had our own farm and grew our own vegetables, that's much better than having to buy things at the grocery store. It's much healthier. You can count on the food that you get not being contaminated, not having genetically modified. So he's saying that he's doing the same thing with regards to the meat. Which, you know what? I mean, even though I'm a vegan, clearly, I feel like that is an interesting argument. I'm not going to ever think that killing an animal is okay. Obviously, that's not anything I'll ever be in support of. But I do think that if you're going to say getting your meat from that method versus the grocery store, I do think that that method is healthier. Listen, it's not ethical either way. If you're buying meat from the grocery store, if you're hunting an animal, either way, it's not ethical. So you're not morally superior if you're a meat eater buying your meat at the grocery store than you are if you're hunting your
And
meat.
yeah, I think they're here for you to eat. I don't think strictly for us. I mean, whoever needs that protein takes that protein, and it's been that way for millions of years.
Oh my God, not that it's been that way argument. Like, I talked about this a couple episodes ago, but it's been that way is an argument that a lot of people are using towards let's just go to McDonald's and let's just eat all these chemicals and let's just take medications to help solve all of our problems because it's been that way for several decades. Does that make it okay?
So I'm a raw meat eater, meaning I only.
Oh my goodness. So I thought the other lady was a raw meat eater. Well, I was kind of like picking on her. How are you a carnivore? Are you hunting your food? This lady's now saying she's a raw meat eater. I'm waiting to find a conventional meat eater here. Like these three meat eaters so far are quite extreme, I think.
Eat raw animal products, and I found that, finding myself here, I had to go through a long, extensive journey of finding the truth about what is true about our diets, about nutrition, about the world, about spirituality as well. And I think when it comes to thinking about if we are meant to eat animals and that animals are meant to be eaten by us, we have to remember that we are at the top of the food chain. And being at the top of the food chain, it doesn't mean that we can just go on a rampage and do whatever we want, kill animals and eat them all, but it comes with a responsibility. Mm-hmm. The strength of being at the top, having the conscious ability to make those long-term decisions and put in the long-term investment to raise animals for food, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of knowledge, and that is something that we humans have the power to do. And so I see it as, yes, we're at the top, but being at the top comes with that responsibility to ethically care for the animals, because it's this beautiful relationship where when we take care of the animals, and like you said, you eat a wild game, you understand the cycle of life of the animals.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's just honoring this beautiful relationship where we nourish and take care of the animals. In turn, nature rewards us by nourishing and taking care of us as well.
All right. Can we
That is quite interesting. That is quite interesting because as she was saying that, I was like finding myself agreeing with her. As we're at the top of the food chain, we have a responsibility to it's like, what do you do with that? What do you do with the fact that you are at the top of the food chain? You do have that privilege and that power, I guess. Like, do you kill other animals for the sake of killing other animals? Absolutely not. And she's even saying the same thing. Where I think I get lost there is just the fact that they're kind of validating the way in which they're choosing to kill which animal and kind of patting themselves on the back a little bit, saying like it's a reward system and that you're being rewarded by nature. Oh, that's how I feel about plants. Honestly, that's how I feel whenever I drink juice, or whenever I eat like fresh produce. I feel like I'm being rewarded by nature. How do you make that same argument for a dead animal, though?
I think it's incredibly self-centered to say that animals have been put on this earth to feed us. Like, I don't think we should act like the world revolves around us as humans. And you say, that we have the power as humans to raise animals for food and to farm them. We also have the power not to do that. We have the power to treat them with kindness and compassion. And I am a factory farm investigator, a slaughterhouse investigator. I go into these places. 99% of the animal products in the United States come from factory farms. And I've been in these places. It is hell on earth. There's nothing humane that happens in those places, even when they claim that it's ethically sourced, when they claim that it's humane, it is not. There are animals screaming, there are animals dying, there are animals languishing in their own feces on certified humane facilities. And we have the power not to do that. And I think that's the conversation we should be having, not that we have the power to do it, and so that we should.
Abso-freaking-lutely, 100% everything she just said. What do you do with that power? Do you use it to kill, or do you use it not to kill? Do you use it to do good in the world, or do you use it not to do good in the world? And I think she's spot on.
I do agree with that sentiment. The reason I disagree with the prompt is that it felt a bit too like anthropocentric for me. Like it's very
Not gonna lie, I'm gonna have to look up what that word means. Did anyone else know what that word meant without having to look it up? I'm not afraid to admit when I have a moment where I don't know shit.
human supremacist in a sense. Like I do eat meat. Like I'm omnivore, I guess, but I don't think that their express purpose is, for us to consume them. Like we do live, they're a part of the land, they're a part of the cycle. We do live with them, and we do owe them a degree of respect. I
respect Nat. We do owe them a degree of respect, and I like that he's able to say that as a meat eater, and I like that he also identified himself as an omnivore. I just feel like if you're a meat eater, you're typically supposed to be an omnivore. I don't understand how you can be a carnivore who doesn't eat any non-meat products. Sorry.
do oppose the current standard that we have of like factory farming.
Good.
This is a big
Good.
intersectional thing actually where it does impact.
There's
more than
nuance.
just,
There's so
the
much
environment.
nuance to this. It doesn't
leads
have to
a
be
lot
gray,
of,
black or white.
Indigenous land theft, and to that extent as well, like it's eating up a lot of land. So naturally, I feel like I do resist factory farming and advocate more for sustainable, but not to the extent of no meat at all. Like I don't think eating meat is inherently immoral. There could be a lot more respect towards life and seeing it more as equal rather than like, oh, we're at the top.
So to say that animals are placed on this earth just to be eaten, it's like saying.
Okay, side note, not to get too off track, but I like the clothes. Like Tori's outfit, the Rethink Protein shirt. The other dude on the left had this, like, animals are on this earth not to be eaten by PETA. And then even Nat, like, not to be stereotyping, but if you didn't tell me who the meat eaters and the vegans were, I probably would have thought that dude was vegan just based on the clothing alone.
You agreed with the fact that black people were considered just to be slaves. They were only here just for slavery. And if you go back in time, look at ancient history within even especially just America itself. You look at history, right? A picnic. What do you think the word picnic comes from? It's a picnic, right? So you gotta hang up from a tree, and then now you're having a picnic, eating your animal flesh around this person because that's how you see them. So you're seeing this animal as the same type of individual. Like the animal has no life, it has no existence but to fuel your supposed protein needs that you need, or supposedly your health was not good because your personal experience. But to say that that's your personal experience justifies everybody else's choice that they should eat just because 6 years you did it, you tried it, but now 6 years you're doing carnivore. Oh, it works so well.
Yeah, for you to discredit my own experience
Yeah, but that's
with
your own
my
experience,
vegan
right?
diet.
You can't just
6 years of
assume
vegan
that
diet.
eating
So
animals
are you
is.
saying that I did it wrong?
No, I'm not saying you did it wrong.
Right.
That's your own
And that's
personal
why I said it,
experience.
because
Exactly.
this is my personal.
So how can you agree that everybody should eat animals?
I never said that I feel like
didn't hear
everybody
anybody say
should eat
that.
carnivore.
Well,
To be fair, she didn't say that everybody should be a carnivore. She just said her own experience. But also, it's okay. I don't think he's attacking you. Just, it's okay.
Everybody
That's what I
should
want
eat
to point out. So it's not about everybody. It's your own personal experience, right?
Yeah, that's what the problem is.
Absolutely.
Also, I think it's very unfair to compare the lives
not
of,
unfair.
of black people to that of animals. Like, you put that in your own words, that it's very similar to the way black people were slaves. We are enslaving animals for food, like completely different.
Why do you think that an
I know a lot of people are upset that Tori said that, but for you to be a white lady or white passing lady telling the one black person on the panel that he can't speak on the slavery matter and make the slavery comment. If anybody on the panel is able to make that comment, I do feel like Tori is. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Animal's life is worth less than any other form of social injustice. There was a time when gay marriage wasn't legal, when black people were slaves, and now there's animals that are kept in factory farms and slaughtered for their flesh. What's any different about that? Because you can't talk to them in the same language? There's plenty of animals that are smarter than humans. A three-year-old child has the same intelligence as a pig. So.
I want to jump off that real quick. Just
I know people are probably going to have a lot of problems with comparing animal suffering and animal rights to the rights of the LGBTQ community or the Black community. And I am interested as to where that dissension comes from or where that aversion comes from to the conversation. Comparing different groups in and of its own can be problematic. Like, I don't think you should ever really like say, oh, being a gay person is just like being a black person. There's obvious differences, and there's obvious differences in what has happened in history to each community. You can't claim to be having the same experience as someone else, and I can understand, that perspective of it. But on the other hand, I think the aversion to that discussion comes from the fact that a lot of people think if you are comparing an animal to a human, then you're speaking less of that human, and you're saying, oh, is that all you see that human as an animal? And the way I approach that criticism, the way I respond to that criticism is that if I am comparing you to an animal, that's actually a compliment to you. I have so much respect and reverence for animals. And there are many animals that I value more than humans. Like, obviously, I care more about my cat than I care about a stranger out on the street, right? Like, I care more about her. I love her. I love many animals more than I love certain humans. So if I'm comparing a human to an animal, then I don't feel like if I'm saying that I love you like I love my dog, that's like the best compliment that I can ever give you.
to talk about the enslavement of animals in our society today. And I want to ask you specifically, you said that you feel close to the animals that you murder, slaughter, and rip away from their families. Do you ever feel or have any sympathy for what the animals go through when you kill them, how their family feels? Animals are the same, all animals are the same, and especially animals that you kill. To humans, in all the ways that really matter, they feel pain, they experience joy, they have families, and you are taking their life away from them when you have other options available and you don't have to make that choice.
In the
that's
same
power
way
of personal
people own
choice.
pets, they bring pets into their own care, into their own hands. They love them, they house them. They guarantee that these pets are given food, given shelter. It is no different when we are raising animals for food. And I think if there's middle ground here that we can all agree on, it's that factory farming is unethical. I personally do not support factory farming. I do not purchase from places that support factory farming. I support, local farmers markets, local butchers that are locally sourced, connected to small farmers. And so when it comes to raising animals for food, it is no different, knowing that these animals have a very direct impact on our lives, on our health. We want to love and take care and nourish the animals. And so, animals out in the wild, they have that chance of being dead, eaten, killed, swept away from harsh conditions. They have that chance of contracting diseases from the outside, and they could be dead today. Within our care, presumably on an ethical farm, I think we can all agree, like I said, factory farming, unethical. But on an ethical farm, we are taking the animals into our own care. We are giving them that guarantee of being fed today. They have that shelter today. We have that bond with them today. And we create this beautiful relationship where we understand that this animal will nourish us. Therefore, we want to nourish this animal, take care of it the best that we possibly can. But when it comes to eating animals for food, that is a reality that has been with us for the beginning of our existence.
Oh my God. So I have a lot to say to this comment that she just made. First of all, sure, yes, let's find the middle ground. We all disagree with factory farming. Okay, good. I'm glad you do. But to say that, like, the justification that she's making, like, I care so much about this animal that I'm going to nourish it before I slaughter the fuck out of it and kill it. Just the words just don't add up. And what else did she say? God, she said a lot in there. Oh, yeah, the other thing I wanted to say. So, like I said at the top of the episode, it doesn't matter how you're killing. There's no such thing as ethical killing. Perhaps the conditions are a lot better from a local farmer. However, you have to know that with a lot of these like free range, even like free range conditions, they're so loose and they've become looser so that the meat industry can grow, which is subsidized, by the way. It's called free range, even if it has like a small entryway in and out, like to every like 200 chickens. Maybe that is true. Maybe there are local farmers for livestock that do have a legitimate free range. At the end of the day, not everybody can afford that. Not everybody has access to that. You talk about people in food deserts. So where do they go? That same argument being thrown at the whole food plant-based vegans who say, we want to get our produce from a local farmer. A lot of people will say, well, hey, like not everybody has money to do that, or not everybody has access to do that. Well, I make the same argument for the people in this video, that lady who's saying, hey, get your animals from a local farmer. Not everybody has the access to do that. More often than not, people are not going to be doing that. Omnivores are not going to be doing that.
Capitalism didn't exist at the beginning or bane of our existence, and I don't think that it is a reality because there's 4 people sitting here living proof that veganism is also a reality and also an option.
That too, yeah. She described eating meat as something that like had to happen.
And third, I would say that there is no nourishing the animal when the animal didn't have to be brought into existence in the first place. And as a vegan, I don't think that most of us support the breeding of dogs or pets either. And when we rescue our animals, they don't have a demise of being slaughtered at the end.
I would never.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is that she was saying that the lady in the red dress was saying that these animals would be killed on their own if they were out in the wild. Well, that's the circle of life. They're killed by other animals because those other animals that kill them are killing them because they have to eat meat. They are carnivores. They hunt. They don't cook their food. Okay, so they're going to die, but they're going to die because they are prey, not because they are prey. They are natural prey. When they are prey as a result of human predators, that's not natural, and you're not saving them. Like this lady is trying to say, oh, I'm saving these animals because I'm killing them before they get killed by another animal. Are you kidding me? I love that the moral justification, the stretching that she goes through.
Slaughter my dog. When you're talking about caring for animals that aren't
Yeah,
animals,
we're not talking about slaughtering
you
a dog.
mentioned that you
At the
can-
same time, dogs
still speaking.
provide. Okay, go ahead.
You mentioned bringing a dog into your home and how we have this
Shit.
relationship with our
That's
dogs
right.
or cats or other
That's right.
animals
Don't
in
let
our
her
home and
interrupt you.
compared that to animals that are used for food. I would never end my dog's life by killing them or
I
murdering
wouldn't
them.
either. I want to be very clear. I would
Your
not do that
dollar
either.
and your consumer
You're not
choice
saying
is
that you would.
promoting and supporting the killing of these animals that feel the same feelings as our dogs that we bring into our home.
But when we bring a dog into our home, aren't we receiving a benefit from that? We are receiving companionship. In return, we are giving this dog food, house, shelter, and love. Same thing for when we eat animals. We are,
Do you
we
personally
benefit
do that
from.
to the animals that you eat, or do you just assume that's happening behind doors that you've never seen?
I make that highly conscious decision to make
mic
sure
drop,
I'm voting with
mic
my
drop.
dollar to support the highest quality livelihood for animals.
seen how
But
that-
I am
yeah.
I'm in contact with the farmers that
But again, you're advocating that everybody does that, and a lot of people aren't able to do that.
I'm sourcing my meat from.
Have you visited a regenerative farm? Have you met
Yeah,
your local
I
ranchers
actually
and
have
your
a
local
bachelor's
farmers?
degree in sustainability, and I did an extensive project on regenerative farming.
I've had the same questions. I've been exposed to the same things when I was vegan. I was in the vegan community for 6 years. For me, when it was too far is when I lost my period. I can't have children if I don't have a period. So I became infertile. And do you know what the vegan community told me? That's fine. That's actually a sign of health and that's totally normal. So I admit that there was a lot of misinformation and brainwashing going on for myself, and I'm speaking for myself. I can respectfully listen and understand your point of view. I was there myself, but my brain just opened up and I had to face, is it going to be my health? Or is it going to save the animals no matter what?
At some point, you have to decide, is it worth sacrificing my health for a religious ideology?
Well, I don't know why you're saying it's religious ideology, because it's not based in religion whatsoever for me personally and for maybe a lot of people. But to the other lady's point, I would like to know a little bit more, I guess, about how her not being able to get her period was a result of the vegan diet. And I'm not denying it. Maybe that's true. I just haven't heard a lot of that. And, I will agree with her. If I had to choose between saving myself or saving other beings, I'd probably choose myself. I probably would choose myself. Other beings that I don't know, that is. If I knew the other beings, I'd probably prioritize them that's just how it is. That's how I am. Like, honestly, and this may sound a little crazy to some people, but if I had to choose between me and my cat, I'm choosing my cat. Like, if my cat's falling off of a burning building and I can either save myself or I can save her, I'm going to save her. And I know people are going to call me crazy and they're like, why would you do that? Your cat is only going to live to XYZ years and you have your whole life ahead of you. I'm sorry, but I love my cat.
Healthy. I think if you're an anomaly, there can be an exception to be made, but I've been vegan for 13 years, vegetarian for 23 years, and I'm extremely
Go
healthy.
off,
I get
girl.
blood work done yearly. I lift weights. I can run a mile in under 7 minutes. I mean, you're an anomaly, and I think that there are other anomalies in existence, but I don't see how how your one experience. I mean, we don't know what you're eating, how you were treating yourself in your day-to-day life.
I was
I
eating
don't
a
know
whole
what-
foods, plant-based diet.
Exactly. That's my point. And I'm not trying to say that she's wrong and that it wasn't true that she stopped having her period and that she couldn't remember her piano choreography because she was on a vegan diet for how many years. But to the other lady's point, I mean, yes, we don't know all the other factors that were involved here. And even if that is true, you are an anomaly because that is not something that is happening in a common basis. And so you're making a claim that, I mean, I know each one of these folks are here for their own individual experience, but she is an anomaly. So what happened to her is not the face case for everyone else.
I was not even eating any processed vegan foods.
I don't think
no
there's
mock
anything wrong with
meats,
processed
just
vegan
whole
foods. You need to track your micronutrients, your macronutrients, your vitamins.
So you're saying she didn't do it right?
I don't know if she did. I can't see her history of what she was eating every day.
Look, I'm sorry you had a bad experience and that you lost your period and that people weren't nice to you about it. But I think, like, I can't stand what's happening to the animals. I've been to some of the darkest places on earth where these animals are tortured by the hundreds of thousands. And, you were saying that, you try to source local, and I get that. And I think it's great that you care about animals. I appreciate that a lot. But I think, if you go to a slaughterhouse where all of these animals are killed, ultimately, regardless of where they're raised, there's nothing humane that happens there. Animals enter into a slaughterhouse as live animals, fearing for their lives, and they come out chopped up in pieces. Nothing humane happens along the way.
Animal rights.
Oh my God, we're only on the first question. Oh, maybe I should stop yapping. Okay, now we're on the second question. Animal rights are just as important as human rights. Yes, I am walking forward for this one. I think I answered this in the first one. I don't think that we are. I mean, yes, we are definitely at the top of the totem pole. There's no questioning that, but it's like, what do you do with that? And I think every animal obviously has feelings and is very smart, including fish. Every animal has the capacity to feel, even sharks. There's been video footage of sharks coming up to humans because they recognize the human and they like getting pets. That does happen even with sharks. Now, please don't take this out of context. I'm not saying to go swim with the sharks. Do not do that. Do not do that.
Range for us to think that humans are somehow superior to non-human animals. We don't question whether non-human animals can see. We don't question whether they can hear, but for some reason we question whether they are sentient, whether they feel pain, and we question those things because it's convenient for us, because it fits our narrative and it allows these corporations to profit off of their existence, or individuals to profit off of their existence. And I don't view animals as any different than humans. I think that we are all morally equal. And some of my best friends are non-human animals. I run an animal sanctuary, Happy Hen Animal Sanctuary, and I've saved over 1,000 animals. And every single one of them is an individual. They have big personalities and they love to explore, and they all have different favorite foods. One of the chickens who I rescued, who came from a factory farm, he kind of imprinted on me as a baby, and he was terrified to be left alone. And even if I left him with someone else, he would cry. He just wanted to be with me all the time. He would follow me everywhere. His name is Glenn, and I can't look at Glenn and love him any less than I love my human family, even though he's a chicken. And a lot of people think that's ridiculous. But I think a huge part of the issue is that so many of us humans, we've distanced ourselves so much from non-human animals, and we need to reconnect with them and remind ourselves of their individuality and how important their lives are.
Agree. Very well said. Very well said. And by the way, she said non-human animals. That's a very good point to make, is that we are animals ourselves. So animal rights human rights they're the same thing because we're animals ourselves.
I definitely agree with a lot of the sentiments that you had there. Where I come from,
By the way, I think it's really nice to see a lot of the meteors come forward on this one.
Is when I approach at least veganism, ideologically, I do agree with the standpoint of respecting an animal's right. It's an individual, and I kind of make that same connection when it comes to hunting as well. And so, especially you utilize like all
you don't take more than what you need. You use as much as you absolutely possibly can, and you do pay your respect.
Listen, I do agree with that, and I respect that point. If you are going to be a hunter, then I do appreciate the fact that you would make every single effort that you possibly can not to waste, because you recognize the fact that an animal had to die for this meat, or for this for whatever you end up using it as with your hunting. I know people, or they might be talking about hunting for sport, and I don't know if they end up using like the fur or for whatever purpose, but use as much as you can because you realize the fact that an animal had to die for it, I do respect that point, because there's nothing worse than having to kill an animal, or not having to kill an animal, but there's nothing worse than killing an animal and then wasting the result of that. Like, an animal had to die for you to waste this. Not saying it's any better, the fact that you're using it for the way you're using it, but I just have to say I appreciate the fact that there is some kind of a consideration for the fact that an animal died for this.
So that's to the extent that I view it, at least to what it was.
I want to jump into and say that killing is in no way showing respect. When you kill an animal, it is not a way to pay your respects. I mean,
I agree with Mason. It's not like it's another way of them kind of moral justification, and they're really like grasping at that. But I do still feel like I appreciate the consideration that they have.
I often think, how would I feel if I was suddenly taken away from my family and all I know, my wife is taken from me?
It's not.
Another good point. Like, animals have a family, and I think a lot of these meat eaters, a lot of these people, not just meat eaters, but humans who don't really like appreciate animals, they don't really realize the fact that an animal has a whole family. They have children. They have a partner that they've had their children with, and they want to be around their families, and you're taking them away from their families.
A matter of disrespect. It's a matter of heritage. As I'm sure as you guys can relate to in some aspects, when you're raised a certain way, you continue that. If it works for you, you're healthy doing it, it's going to be what you continue to do. And I'm passing that on to my kids. They're going to pass it on to their kids. I've been out in the woods learning my trade and learning how to take care of the environment at the same time since I was 3 years old. It's not something that I take lightly. I'm out there because I do love the animals. I'm not out there I'm going to kill someone.
Bro, what? Are you telling me you're out there hunting animals because you love the animals? I cannot make that connection, my friend.
If you could go sit and count how many times I go out in the field and just sit there.
Sit there and do what?
And enjoy nature. And eventually,
so do we.
I might get to harvest my buck for the year.
What the? I mean, bro, so do we, but we don't kill animals while we're doing it.
I mean, I appreciate that that's not what it's about for you, but even like the way you're speaking about these animals, that you're going to harvest them, shows to me that there's some sort of disconnect there, that you're not,
it's not
acknowledging
a disconnect at all.
them.
It is
as the
definitely a
individuals.
disconnect.
No, it's not a disconnect at all. Every animal you look at is completely unique, and it's really cool. It's amazing. But
Yeah, but so are humans, and you're not killing them, are you?
at the same time, there's a food chain.
Oh my God, not the freaking food chain argument. I'm going to go back to what I just said earlier. Leave the food chaining to the animals in the wild. We don't need to interfere with the food chain. If you let the natural predators take care of that.
If we're out in Africa and come
Oh
on
my God,
pride
I'm sorry. You did not just say Africa.
lions, you think they're not going to eat your ass?
But you have, I
What?
assume you hunt with a gun.
What?
I know, with a gun, a bow, camera, my eyes, whatever. I need to.
So, but you have weapons, and you use those weapons to kill the animal, right?
Ultimately, yeah.
Like when you're talking about this supposedly natural food chain, like lions don't have weapons.
Yeah, they do. They've got a bunch of them on the end of their
Sure.
fingers.
Oh, are you? Yeah, duh, bro. Yeah, they have weapons on their claws. You just proved her point. They have weapons on their claws. You do not have weapons on their claws. Their weapons are natural. They were born with them. We have to manufacture our weapons. Are you not realizing that you're proving her point?
It's their body. You know, we're not going out sinking our teeth into the throats of animals and ripping
Thank you.
We would,
their
though.
throats out.
But we can't.
No,
so
we.
it's not really the
I'm just trying to think about that. Would I? If I could, would I? No, not if I didn't have to. But I mean, to that point, I don't. We don't, and we only would if we had to. That's how living things are evolved and created.
Can't fly either. Should I not get on an
And let's
airplane?
remember,
Well, no, because my question is, if
Oh my, okay, bro. This is you keep digging yourself into a hole. I can't fly either. Does that mean I shouldn't get into an airplane? The fact that you have to go onto something that was manufactured is proving her point. Okay? You can't fly. So there's certain things that you can't do that a flying animal like a bird or an owl can. And the same thing goes for a lion who has sharp claws. There's certain things that they can do that we shouldn't.
Do you know how to make shoes?
what?
Do you know how to make shoes?
This isn't taking the life of somebody
It doesn't
else.
matter.
Okay, I don't know how to make shoes, and I walk around my whole apartment barefoot all the time. We're actually not meant to wear shoes. We really aren't. Like, we're meant to have our feet touch the ground, and we're not meant to wear socks either. Socks put too much pressure on our feet. So if I could be barefoot, I would. The reason we need shoes is because we have streets and sidewalks, which were man-made. That's not natural, okay? Which, if we didn't have that, then no, we wouldn't be wearing shoes. We wouldn't be.
This isn't taking the life of somebody
It doesn't
else.
matter.
And I'm not, this has
You
nothing
don't
to
have
do with the food chain.
you don't have the right to wear shoes if you don't know how to make them. How does that sound?
the food chain is such an obsolete and outdated term in today's society. Can a lion go to the grocery store to purchase their dinner? No.
Exactly.
I think a huge
Yes.
difference between, whether or not you have the right to use something like shoes is, in theory, ideally shoes are made by someone who's consenting to make them.
And
Obviously,
so
that's
like
not always what happens, but
The bug you stepped on the way in here wasn't
No, I'm
consenting
very
to
careful
be-
not to step on
We're
that. That's
talking
not
about
also-
Me too. I don't step on bugs. But I really don't.
conscious choices we make in our everyday life.
Okay.
Doing the best we can to help respect and uphold animals' lives.
Mm-hmm.
And you have other options available. You don't have to take an animal's life, but you choose to.
Well,
and that's
should
what
I
we're
feel
talking
upset
to you
because you
about.
guys are eating my food's food?
Most of the
Oh my God, not the eating my food's food argument. Where do we even start? Animals are mass produced. The breeding industry, so that we can have more cows, that we can have more milk, so that we can have more meat. So clearly, there's not enough animals to sustain naturally without us interfering. So if we're going to interfere with production, we should interfere with production of plants. So that way we can eat plants and then the animals can eat plants. Why would we interfere with the production of animals instead? Regardless, humans are going to have to step in so that we can mass produce and sustain. But there's not going to be a way in which you can avoid that for plants and animals. So why would you choose animals?
animals that are consumed by humanity, they don't even eat other animals. They eat nutrition from the ground, and so or they get fed soy or what have you. And so it's like we're making this distinction that we have to eat them, but we're basically eating the middleman in order to get.
That's exactly true. You're eating a recycled version of your nutrients. And I don't understand why people are so satisfied with that. And why wouldn't you just want to eat your nutrients in the most natural form that they come? Why would you want to eat them in a secondhand manner?
The nutrients that we need from the ground that the animal is getting anyway.
Yeah.
What do you mean, bruh? That's the fact.
But at the same time, just being on a plant-based diet is not going to work for me. I can tell you, I don't need to try it.
Okay, so you're saying it just won't work for me, but I'm not going to try it. So how do you know it doesn't work for you?
But I completely respect you guys for doing what you do.
Thanks
It's
for the
fine.
respect.
I always come by the motto, live and let live. I really don't care.
I agree too. I'm not trying to convert you to be veganism, but I'm just, obviously this whole conversation is so that they can understand your perspective. And I think what's missing in your argument there is the why you can't do it, especially when you say you're never going to try.
You guys do your thing, I'll do my thing, and we're good,
but you're not living
Live is
in that-
ironic
yeah.
when you're killing.
I'm not talking about that right now. I'm talking about,
You
I'm
just
talking,
said it.
Very
It doesn't just
contradictory.
extend to
No.
humans.
I'm
That's
talking
human
about you
supremacy.
four individuals right here, right now. I'm not talking about Bambi. I'm not talking about Baloo the bear over there at Disneyland. I'm talking about you guys right here.
Man, this guy's slightly insufferable.
But what's the difference between letting me live and letting a non-human animal live? Like, I don't think that it would be any more wrong for you to kill me right now than it would be for you to go and kill
I
a chicken
agree.
right now. I think that would be morally.
And that's,
I
that's your
agree.
point of view, and that's fine. You're allowed to feel that way.
All right, can we have the disagreeers step forward?
If we're thinking about animals' rights being equal to that of humans' rights, I feel like that is us not really valuing our own lives.
See, I just made this point earlier, and she's going to say that if you see yourself at the same level as an animal, then you are seeing yourself as less than. And I completely disagree with that. And again, like I had a former roommate once who said that she would be really angry if, or not, like she was kind of kidding, but also sort of serious. She said she'd be really angry if she had a child and I cared more about my pet than I did her child. Well, actually, sorry to break it to you, but that's exactly what's going to happen. I mean, if I care about you the same way or even more than my animal, then you should take that as a huge compliment because I care about animals so much and I love animals so much. And if I'm comparing you to my dog, that's a compliment. You should take that as a sign of respect. I don't understand this whole thing of saying like if something is like an animal that it means you're saying they're less than. I just don't get it. Animals are to be respected. There's nothing wrong with animals. There's nothing that makes them inherently worth disrespecting. I mean, they're members of this earth and every animal has a different function. Like every animal has things that we can't do. If you think about dolphins and how they echolocate and how they're super smart, I have respect for that. I have respect for the fact that we can't do those things. Like if you think about, you just said animals that can fly. Some animal can fly, we don't. They're worthy of respect in that way. Every animal has certain things that they can do that they're good at, that they're smart about, that we can't. For crying out loud, animals know what they're supposed to eat. And I said this in an episode before, I think. We're the only species that doesn't know what we're supposed to eat. I mean, do animals have to read or watch programming to figure out what they're supposed to eat? No, they just eat it and they live because they know naturally what they're supposed to eat. So if you want to have that argument, animals are technically smarter than us.
If we see ourselves as equal to that of the ant on the floor or like an animal where another animal is going to eat that animal, like you don't see animals who miraculously become vegan.
Okay, girl. The reason we miraculously become vegan is because we have been programmed to not be vegan. We are natural herbivores. If you have all these people who can survive on an herbivorous diet, animals don't miraculously become vegan, but there are herbivores who are animals. There are carnivores who are animals. There are omnivores who are animals. And they know that that's exactly what they're supposed to be. The reason that humans change is because we get programmed and we get deprogrammed and we just don't know.
You know, when you see yourself at this subhuman level, you know, you don't really value yourself.
If I tell you that I love you like I love my cat, then that means I love you and I value you. And I'll never say that to you because you're getting on my last damn fucking nerves.
And I think when it comes down to it, if it comes, you know, there's an animal in here trying to attack all of you, I would value each and every one of your lives over that animal. And so
if I was in this room and there was an animal attacking each and every one of us, I would not value you all over that animal. I'm not saying that I would let it kill everybody. I mean, I value Tori because I know Tori. I don't know anybody else in this video. I would try to save the other humans, but let's just see what she's going to say.
I think when it comes to our rights, I just don't see us at the same level as animals. I would choose the human life over the animal.
So there's certain human lives that I would choose over an animal that I don't know. Like if my mother and I were in a room and there's a bear attacking us, of course, I value my mother over this bear that I don't know. But if there's a bear that I grew up with, let's say that it just so happened that I grew to know this bear and this bear grew to know me and we have a friendly relationship, that can happen. And that bear is in a room with a human that I do not know and there's a threatening situation, I'm going to value the bear.
Attacking all of us in here with a gun, would you jump in and be like, yo, shoot me? Or would you try to protect yourself?
I value my life as a human. I value your lives as humans. You know, of course, I'm going to maybe look after myself in that specific scenario. But when it comes to an animal where, like, you know, we are at the top of the food chain, we have that strength, that responsibility, we have that power to take more control over the situation, I would choose the humans over the animal, for sure. Like, would you just allow the animal to attack all the humans?
I might. No, I'm just not going to allow it to. I would help, but I'm not going to kill the animal either.
You're talking about humans as if we're like morally superior to non-human animals.
Well,
and
we
that-
have
I really like this lady with the orange button up and the ginger hair. I really like her. I respect her.
we have a higher consciousness.
Do we?
We're able
We're
to
the
make
ones who-
long-term decisions,
But we're the ones who have factory farms. We're the ones who've committed atrocities throughout history.
which, you know,
Humans
is
have done that.
unethical, and like we don't have to do that. I think
I'm just saying that we're not more capable of making the right choice than non-human animals. Looking at our track record, I don't think that that's true, and I don't think saying that we're not primal is a fair argument.
There's humans that sexually assault other humans. There's humans that commit horrible hate crimes against other humans. There's humans that murder other humans, and I think that's a strong touch.
And to the point that she made, animals don't do that to each other. They just don't. They don't. Animals only kill when they have to kill, when they have to eat, when they're natural predators. Humans kill other humans all the time for a myriad of fucked up reasons. So who's morally superior? Who has a higher consciousness?
Testament to the fact that we are no less primal than other animals. You just aren't integrated into their society or culture to understand the reason they interact with each other the way that they do.
Well, so like when animals eat other animals, is that cruel or is that just part
They
of
don't
nature?
have the option to go to the grocery store.
Yeah, you have a losing argument here because when animals eat other animals, again, it's because they have to.
Not eat each other.
Because that's their way of life. That's why
Yeah,
animals.
this
you
isn't
know,
our way.
Yes, that's their way of life. That's not ours. We don't kill each other on the street and eat each other. We go to the grocery store. Someone else has to do it for us, and they have to use a weapon.
Of life, you have another choice. Your way of life could be either way, and you're choosing the immoral way.
So I'd love to chime in. So I was vegan for 6 years, carnivores for 6 years. That day when I ate animal foods for the first time, after being so integrated in the vegan community, absolutely, I felt shame. I felt guilt. I felt so bad. And I was like, do I really have to do this? But I had to be realistic because I literally was dying. I just felt so bad. My health was just not supported.
Again, like this lady is an anomaly, and I feel for her. I'm not discounting the feelings that she has and how she felt so bad. And I do feel that it is very unfortunate that she was shamed by the other vegans. Because when I talk to somebody who says they used to be a vegan in real life, this happens all the time. And I've met a lot of people who used to be a vegan and are no longer vegan. I don't feel any type of way about them in the sense of like you're a horrible person, you know? And everybody has a valid reason for doing what they're doing. So it is unfortunate that this lady got all the backlash that she got, and I can see that, I can sense that she did have a lot of conflicting feelings about it, and that she had to deal and confront that. So I respect that.
Supported by eating only.
But to the other points there, that is an anomaly.
By eating only plants. So I would love to bring it back to health. If it is at a cost of a human's health and they are literally deteriorating, they're dying, does that mean they have to still fight for animals to the last day that they live just for the animals, and just neglect their health, neglect their fertility, neglect their availability to have their own family?
I would say I agree with her, but I would also say again, those cases are more rare than not. I would say that if you truly have a health reason, which in my mind, that doesn't actually exist, okay? I just feel like the only way I can entertain that is if you do not have the means. If you do not have the means to be vegan or even vegetarian, and your health is at risk, or you live somewhere like in a food desert, or you live somewhere that doesn't have access to vegan friendly or vegetarian food, then absolutely I have no judgment. And to this prompt, your right to health is important, more important than an animal's right that you don't know. Okay. So I have to entertain that aspect of it, but I do feel like that is way often used as an excuse for other people who are not in those situations to live the same way, because clearly, like, you have people who are not in a food desert, who are have an abundance of access to vegetarian and vegan friendly food, who are not eating that way.
So I want to talk about how we can heal humanity first before we talk about how to protect every single animal life. And back to, is an animal's life just as valuable as a human? Yes, but for me, up until when the human has to die for that animal or suffer with their health just to protect that animal.
I guess I'm confused how your answer is that animals are equivalent to humans then. And I would love to hear like kind of more about why you agree with the original prompt.
So like Anne said, vote with your dollar. Just buy meat from regenerative farms.
But that's
Go
still
visit
taking an
these
animal's
farms.
life.
Yeah, we're not in this for the climate. We're in it because, for me personally.
Good for you. I'm so happy
Right.
that you're in it for
No,
that.
I'm saying I'm not going to buy meat from a regenerative farm because it's still an individual's life taken away.
And I'm never going to do that either. I'm never going to kill an animal, and I don't think anybody should. But we're not all doing this for the same reason. Some people are in it for the climate, and some people are in it for their health. I'm in it for the animals and all the above.
Where does the line end where it's like human lives matter, animals' lives matter, like do plants' lives matter? Like do their lives matter too to you guys, or is it just animals?
Listen, plant lives matter in a sense of we need them to grow. So don't go like slashing plants that are and wasting them. If you're going to slash a plant, then eat it, but don't like burn down trees. In a sense, I say to your question, plant lives matter in the sense of you shouldn't be burning down trees just for the sake of burning down trees. So yeah, they do matter, but not in the sense of they have feelings.
Like, is it all living things on Earth, or is it just one specific group?
So I mean, I think plants matter, and I think we should try to cause them
So
as
should
little
we
harm
not
as
eat
possible.
plants?
Yeah, plants feel pain too. So if you
Oh my God, she did not say that. Plants do not feel pain. Plants have a natural kind of like reaction. And so I've seen this argument before, and I've seen that, like, why do plants grow and why do they kind of like fight back if you try to kill them? It's just like a reaction, like the plant, what do you call it? The Venus flytrap. Okay. It's just like a matter of like instinct and reaction, but they don't have feelings.
really
My
so
goodness.
care about animals not
I
feeling
don't
pain, then
think
why are you
Your
Land
flower
their
has a
argument.
central nervous system.
That's what I meant to say. They don't have a central nervous system. See, this is why I couldn't be on one of these episodes, because I just can't think of my words clearly, and I can't think of it on the spot. So I got to get better at that, because I would actually love to be on a Jubilee. I think you typically have to be in LA to do them, but I just gotta say kudos to all these people for even coming on here and making their points, especially the vegans here who are able to articulate it in a way that I feel like I would need to phone a friend.
I don't think your garden has a
Absolutely
central
not the
nervous
same way. They don't
system.
have a brain,
Nervous
but they
system.
still feel the pain.
They react
right?
to
They
stimuli
say
in their
the same
environment,
argument there.
but they're not being taken away
May I
from their
ask,
family.
in
and
your
brutally
vegan diet, what
slaughtered.
foods do you eat in a
plants do
typical
have
day?
families.
What do you eat in a typical day?
I would say I eat the same foods you do, but the plant-based alternative.
So like fake.
There's no
burger
reason that
patties.
you can't be getting nutrients.
Are you
from
eating
plant-derived
vegetables,
sources.
fruits, or mock meats? Like what?
All of it.
All of okay.
Yeah.
Did you know that to monocrop and factory grow your plants, so many rodents, so many insects, bugs are being killed?
Did you know how
So
much
if you really
plant and
care-
crop growth
so if
goes
you really
into
care, then
feeding
why
the
don't you fight for
livestock,
them?
the livestock
why
that
don't
you're
you get cows
consuming?
that
That is
Ooh, both of them have really good points. When it comes to insects and rodents, I do value them. I wouldn't kill them. I think there's many studies that show that the type of feelings they have, the type of cognition and central nervous system that they have is, I guess, closer to plants in the sense that it's more like a reactionary instinct type of thing. Like if you're trying to kill an insect, they're going to try to like save themselves. It's just like a reaction to a living thing. Animals, even insects, have families. When it comes to killing them for the sake of the fact that you're infested, then yes, I would. I've killed gnats and fruit flies. I don't kill mice. I have a cat. So I mean, she does make a good point. She does make a good point. You can't say like, hey, I would never kill anything because you have to kill a rodent to get crops. But he also has a very good point because they made the point earlier of you're eating my food's food. Well, that's because you're mass producing again animals and meat. Well, if we're going to mass produce something, then let's mass produce the plants. And that they're already doing that, but they're not doing it for us. They're doing it to feed them. So why don't we just do that, but let's do it for us.
Nourishing the
soy and
animals that you're
crab.
trying
But
to
eating
save.
animals it kills so many more plants.
All this talking has worked me up an appetite.
We get an ad
For chicken tendies arrives.
with the guy who was only able to say a couple words. Okay, the prompt here is there is no humane way to slaughter an animal. I am stepping forward for this one. There is no humane way to slaughter an animal. I already have been through that.
I think there are.
I don't know. I just don't understand how some people are not walking forward. Like, how do you humanely kill something? How? I guess you could say like you can humanely kill a human if they're dying and suffering in the hospital by, I guess, like sticking a needle, or you humanely kill a pet that's dying, but they're not doing that to animals that they're eating for food. So I guess I'm conflicted here. I would say there is a humane way to kill an animal, a human or a pet, if they're dying. That's the only way.
There are especially inhumane ways to slaughter an animal. I'm actually currently wearing an ankle monitor, and I'm
for you,
facing,
Zoe.
up to 5.5 years in prison for rescuing chickens from a particularly cruel slaughterhouse.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I respect you, Zoe. I respect you. I respect that action. It's something that I wish I could do. I wish I had the courage to do that.
It's Purdue's Petaluma Poultry Slaughterhouse, and they were exposed for boiling chickens alive and other atrocities. And I mean, which is obviously sadly more common than people think in slaughterhouses. But even, while I am grateful that I was able to save a few chickens from an especially horrible fate, I know that there's still no humane way to kill an animal.
I look at it in the same sense that humane and slaughter, actually, they don't go together. I don't see how that's possible. I mean, yes, of course, in the past, would we have considered that slaughter, what I'm talking about is human sacrifices to said gods and, different ideologies. They would take the first virgin or whatever and sacrifice them, and she didn't want to go, but of course, the people thought that that's the way it should be. So to me, humane and slaughter don't go together, so I don't see that there's possible to have humane slaughter.
All right, can we have the disagreeer step forward?
So the way I see it is that if we are not using the animals for food, there is a chance that out in the wild they are being hunted, eaten, killed by other predators to be used as food at the end of the day.
This lady keeps saying the same thing throughout this whole episode. If we don't kill them, then they're going to get killed by other animals. Okay, we get it. But it's not true. If we don't eat them, they're going to get killed by other animals because those other animals are natural predators and need to eat animals for food. We do not. So we are not saving them by killing them. And you can keep telling yourself that to try to feel better about yourself and about your actions and your choices, but it's not going to make it true.
And I see it as like the scarcity of life is what gives our lives value, right? The fact that death is coming for all of us is what makes our lives so beautiful and meaningful. And animals fully understand this. When they're out in nature, they're living in constant awareness of their own survival. They play this balance between being predator and being a prey. They know that.
Yeah, they are hyper aware of their own survival. If you're a prey, if you're an animal who's prey, you always have to live that way in the wild. I mean, just think about seals, the way that seals live their life, always on alert because they're prey to sharks and whales. And it sucks because they're the cutest animals and they're so sweet. They're not so aware that would come from a human. And I don't think that justifies the fact that we should kill them. I don't think that justifies it at all. Like if somebody lives in a bad neighborhood, for instance, and they're hyper aware because they could possibly get mugged or beat up, does that mean I should mug them when I see them? Like, let's say we work together in the office building. Should I mug them because they're aware of that?
Survival is never guaranteed for them. And so it's the same understanding that makes our lives so meaningful. And so for myself, when I'm eating my raw meat, I am eating this with the utmost, highest sense of gratitude knowing that this flesh came from a live animal, that this life had a
Yeah, and when I'm beating somebody up in my work building because they live in a dangerous neighborhood, I'm doing that with so much respect.
sacrifice, it comes with a sacredness to it. And I'm trying to work towards more and more, using every single part of the animal, not only eating the meat, but like using as much as I can to honor the life of the animal. And I think in today's world,
Again, I said this a little bit earlier. I respect the idea that they would use every single part of the animal that had to die for them, because there's nothing worse than doing that and wasting it. But just thinking about like what she's about to say, probably using the bones and the skin and the fur, seeing that on display is just utterly disgusting to me, because it shows you that you took some pride in this. And I just can't get behind that.
I think in today's
Tori's
world,
face.
it's so normalized to practice low vibrational eating habits, like not knowing where your food's coming from, or like eating, slouched over, watching a low vibrational YouTube video on your phone, not being grateful for what you're eating.
Girl, I do not want to hear anything about low vibrational coming from you.
And so, especially because what I'm eating, there's attached to it a sacrifice, a life, a sacredness. I feel even more grateful and more mindful when I'm eating it, understanding the value of its nutrients and that it took years for this animal to develop its nutrients in order to nourish me.
One of the points you early on made is like, an animal has a chance of being killed just out in the world, and they could be killed in a horrible way. I mean, first of all, we're breeding these animals into existence, and we're farming them typically on a mass scale.
I love Zoe. Zoe, if you ever happen to see this video, just know that I really love you.
There's not really, that element of it. But also, I could say the same about you or myself. There's a chance that when I walk out of here today, someone will stab me to death. That is a real possibility. Would that make it the most ethical thing for you to more humanely kill me right now?
But it helps us understand like the scarcity of our life, the value of our lives, knowing we could walk out of here and be stabbed. That's why our life is so meaningful. That's why it's so meaningful to eat the animal knowing it comes with a sacrifice. It doesn't have to be an inhumane way. You can still respect and honor that.
I don't find meaning in my life because I know that I might get stabbed to death when I leave.
You don't find meaning in your life because you know that our life is temporary here, that we are going to die one day. That is what makes living like each moment so valuable.
That doesn't make any ounce of sense. You're saying that this life is so meaningful because we could die at any moment and we should be grateful for the time that we have. Yet you're killing other living things and taking their life away and being grateful for it. I don't understand the connection.
I disagree. I don't think that I'm afraid of dying or value every moment of my life more because it could be taken away from me. I value the connections that I have with other individuals on this planet, and I don't think about dying. I mean, that's really just not the meaning of life to me. It's not to exist or exist longer. It's about what we do while we're here.
And I think the main takeaway here is sort of what you said, where it's about the idea of, yes, all we truly have is our life, and all animals have is their life. And so I would pose to you, who are you to take away another animal's life, when really, in essence, like you were saying, that's all we have? Who are you to give death to that animal? Who are any of us to do that? In that regard, our lives are our own, and we shouldn't be taking the lives of others when we don't need to.
Again, for me, it's so important that we talk about what is going to support optimal health. Anne said she wants to survive. I want to survive and thrive. You talked about wanting to have a meaningful life, meaningful conversations, maybe meaningful friendships and relationships. If eating meat, sustainably raised, can support somebody having a meaningful life, I don't think we should be shamed for choosing to eat meat.
I don't think anybody is shaming them. I think this whole conversation and the purpose of it is to just obviously come to some common ground, but also understand the why behind it. So honestly, what I'm just trying to gather, I mean, I'm never going to change your mind, and I'm not here to shame every person who is not a vegan or every person who eats meat. But I am interested in this conversation because I am interested in understanding why you're doing it and also sharing why we're doing it.
I said the word anomaly a lot with my case.
Yeah.
If you take
and so did I.
24 hours just immersing yourself in the meat eating community, you actually will see a lot of vegans who have had to quit that diet because their health also declined. So in my eyes, I don't see this as an anomaly. A lot of people are suffering because—
That is true, but you have to realize how huge this whole planet is. And honestly, there are a lot of former vegans, but when you compare that to the grand scheme of all the people that there are in this world, and even when you think about people who live in other countries that don't typically have meat in their traditional foods, it's more of like a Western type of influence, then you have to realize that can actually be more anecdotal than you think.
they think this vegan diet is the best diet in the world and you can save the planet. but it's not.
Well, I think the issue is that the people you're talking about see veganism as a diet, and therefore they may be extremely restrictive with what they're eating. But there is a way to eat plant-based and vegan that is extremely healthy. And I mean, there are a lot of testaments to
I mean, I think she's kind of making an assumption. There's no knowing why a former vegan is no longer vegan. And you can assume, like she just did, that it was because they saw veganism as a diet, but that might not be true.
this. And I also have seen the videos that you're talking about.
Yep.
And it's usually an insane switch up. It goes from one end to the extreme other end, like raw meat. And I think that there is a lot to be said about consumerism and social media
I like how she
behind
just,
a lot
like,
of these
called out the other
specific
lady.
testimonies that you're referencing. And I think that if you were to really do the research, it wouldn't come from people's stories on the internet. It comes from research articles by
Mic
the
drop.
National Health Institute and Harvard and other research institutes. And veganism and a plant-based diet has been shown to reduce the overall risk of mortality and a million other heart disease, cardiovascular disease.
It
a ton
didn't
of
for
other
me. It
things.
didn't for me. So I
I
can
believe
say.
you. In your
I believe you
story,
too.
I acknowledge your story.
Referring these studies on veganism, have you read any on the other side?
I have. Just recently graduated
Okay, that was just a weird question. Have you read any on the, why do you assume she didn't?
college, and I got
Congratulations.
my degree in sustainability. And one of the entire sections we had in one of my sustainability politics and conservation class was discussing with hunters and looking at all of these articles in depth. So even if I wanted to be biased, I was forced to look at it from an unbiased perspective to
Well,
obtain
that's
my
great.
degree.
I wish more
and
people did that.
yeah, and I don't know. I just feel like it wasn't very nice to make that assumption about me.
No, I was asking a question. That's not, I didn't assume anything. I was just asking innocently. I was just curious. To have this style of life, as you guys so eloquently put it, this style of life, there has to be death. It's just how it is. And I know that hurts your guys' feelings or whatever the case is, but it isn't, like I said earlier, it's a necessary evil.
I agree that there has to be death in order to support any lifestyle and any food chain, and I know there is death that goes into the crops that I buy at the grocery store, but I think that it is important to cause the least amount of death
Absolutely.
possible. So that makes me wonder is the meat that you hunt the only thing you eat, or do you also buy produce from the grocery store? Because if so, you're causing death from those vegetables and death
Absolutely.
from...
I'm not arguing that.
Yeah, so I don't
What
think that it
what-
hurts my feelings that death
Like,
exists,
like
it's
I
just
said,
less death.
it's a generalization. I'm sorry if I put that on you incorrectly.
Well,
That's
I don't
not.
think any vegan thinks that really, it's just less death.
Okay, that's fair.
It's not the absence of
No,
death.
that's totally fair. I mean, I wasn't referring to like plant death.
Okay, come on, guys. Let's just move on with it. Like, we don't need you to tiptoe. We don't need the politically correctness. Just get on with it. Come on.
Which is obviously a thing as well. But to answer your question, no, as I said before, I feed my family probably 90% stuff that I've taken in the field, or my kids or my wife. We all do this to support our family. We grow a garden in the back. We harvest our own vegetables. I keep what I buy at the store to a very, very low, because I don't want to keep harping on factory farming, because we all agree that that's not ideal, right?
At one point, you referred to factory farming as a necessary evil.
Yeah,
And
for some, yes.
So and that kind of answered my question for you. I guess one question I have is, would you all support shutting down all industrial slaughterhouses and all industrial factory farms? Would you support phasing those facilities out?
I wouldn't say phasing out necessarily, but definitely looking at the way things are done in a more humane way, I guess.
Glad
AKA
you said that.
phasing out.
When it comes to humane, we talk about honoring the animal and this and that. So we have to understand that we're not in that animal's mind or that animal's spirit. We're just thinking, okay, I honor you to feed me. And the animal's like, dude, I really didn't want to be killed. Yeah. But I guess you need food, so all right, I can't stand up against your blade or your bullet.
Every small farmer who owns animals that eats them in the end, people who own cows, own chickens, and a lot of people close to where I live own chickens and stuff like that. Like, there is a bond. They see them as part of their family with the intention of eating them at the end of their life.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. How do you see something as your family and then eat them and kill them and eat them? That just doesn't. A lot of what this lady in the red dress is saying is so like disconnected from, like, the words that she's saying in this whole video are all disconnected from each other.
You don't own your family. You
What an
coexist
interesting
with your
Okay,
family.
maybe that was a wrong choice of word. Maybe
That's a good point too. You don't own your family.
but it's like you protect your family. You protect them. They're part
From
of your
death.
family.
Protect them from what if you're killing them and eating them?
As soon as at the slaughterhouse, they are screaming at the top of their lungs,
I think she's under this assumption that by owning an animal, taking care of them, sure, loving them and respecting them, sure, if you can call it that, and then killing them and eating them is saving them. Saving them from what? It seems that she thinks that we're saving them from being killed by other animals. That's not saving them. That's called not minding your own business. That's called interfering in the circle of life. You call this the circle of life. This is not the circle of life. The circle of life is you're taking food away from animals actually that need to eat prey. Somebody made a comment earlier, it might have been her, that we are taking the food's food away. You're taking the food's food away. You think we're taking the food's food away by eating plants. You're taking the food's food away by eating their food, their animals that they would eat because they have to eat. I just don't understand this lady. She thinks she's just protecting animals from animals.
Begging for help, and nobody will
I
help
understand
them.
that, but I think, I think we're all in agreement factory farming is bad.
I'm not talking about factory farming. I'm talking about the
slaughterhouses,
slaughterhouse.
factory
The slaughterhouse
farming.
is necessary for the type of agriculture that you
Tell her,
are
Zoe.
For
that you think is
small
so great.
farmers.
They send their animals, most of the time, most of those small farmers send their animals to slaughterhouses, often
Most,
to
but not all.
industrial
There
scale
is a way.
slaughterhouses. So I have a question, and I really want you to answer honestly. Not that I think you wouldn't, but if you raise an animal, you gave them a name, say it's a baby pig, you raise them from a baby, you give them a name, you love them, you take care of them, maybe they even, as a baby live in your house, you treat them like your dog or your cat. Could you then slit their throat, look into their eyes and slit their throat when they're 6 months old? That's how old pigs are when they reach slaughter weight. They're 6 months old. Could you slit that 6-month-old pig's throat?
She's going to say yes.
Yes.
You could do that.
I knew she was going to say yes.
Because I understand the cycle of life, and I understand that this pig,
Could you slit your dog's throat?
I have invested this time into raising this pig, into developing the nutrients, into living a safe, comfortable life, and in turn, I get to be nourished and taken care of as well. So and I don't see, I feel like it's almost delusional to not accept that as a reality.
So you have a dog?
The lady who has said all of these disconnecting words this whole time is saying everyone else is delusional.
I don't have a dog, but I work with dozens of dogs every day. I understand the relationship of dogs to
You need to be
humans,
fired.
dogs to other animals. Yes.
Well, I guess, do you imagine if you had a dog who you presumably loved, do you think that if you were just really hungry one day and you didn't have access to any other raw meat, that you could slit your dog's throat?
I mean, think about the way these dogs, there's many dogs that are stray or maybe put in high kill shelters that are going to be dead.
Yeah.
Just
The dude on the end said, if I was starving, you damn right. Okay, what if it wasn't a dog? What if you and your son were, I don't know if he has a son or not. What if you and one of your family members were in a room and you had no access to any other food? Would you kill each other if you were stuck in an island? Not necessarily a room. If you were stuck in an island, would you kill each other? Maybe you would. I wouldn't.
existing. Why not take the dog in? I'm not saying I eat dogs. I don't eat dogs.
No, I realize
that. But
We
if it
know.
were this hypothetical situation, giving this dog that guarantee of being fed, guarantee of safety, guarantee of being loved and taken care of, if that is exactly how it comes down to, I have no other thing to eat, possibly nothing at all, then yes, I would have to eat the dog. I have no choice.
The majority of people wouldn't do that.
I understand that. My family has come from a country where they do eat dogs, so I've seen this happen. And if they're not eating the dogs are just stray. The way Asian cultures
I'm
view
curious
pets
where
is
this
very
woman
different
is
from
from.
here
I'm just
in
curious.
the Western civilization. People who own pets here, a lot of countries in Asia are
Oh,
like,
okay,
why do
she's an
people
Asian
even do
lady.
that? But people eat dogs there, and it's the unfortunate, harsh reality.
And I understand that people do eat dogs, and I also understand that most people in the United States think that that's wrong. I don't personally see any moral difference between eating a dog and eating a pig, or eating a dog and eating a chicken or a fish. I think it is morally equivalent, and I think that it's wrong for us here in the United States to judge people in other countries who eat dogs while we're eating pigs and chickens. But that is an issue that comes up for me, because so many people who defend eating meat would never eat a dog, and they think that that's
I agree with her. It's wrong for people who don't eat dogs but do eat animals of other kinds to judge people in other countries for eating dogs. But I don't think it's wrong for vegans to, I guess, not judge, maybe judge is the word, but to just see that as wrong because we're not eating any kind of animals. And like she said, I agree 100%. They're all of the same value to me. And I mean, some people might say even a vegan criticizing a culture that eats dogs is culturally insensitive. I would completely disagree with that, because your culture is impacting my ethics. I still believe in what I believe in.
I have a hypothetical question for you. If you could answer this.
Yeah.
If it really came down to your health versus the vegan ideology and you absolutely, came to a point where you realize that it's actually deteriorating your health, even though I understand that you're very passionate about the animals, I really admire that. Everything you're doing is wonderful. But if it came down to your health, personally, I pray that you choose your health first. But I'm asking you, would you choose the vegan ideology or would you choose your health if it came down to it?
To me, it's not about the vegan ideology. It's about animals' lives and their lives.
What about your health? I'm curious where your health plays into
Sure,
this.
I get your question. I just wanted to clarify that first, that it's not just an abstract ideology. It's a real life or death matter for real animals. And that's what we're talking about today. And so much suffering for real animals. I will say, I live with a chronic illness and a disability. It's an autoimmune disease. And there are people who do test on animals to try to cure my disease. And I wish that they wouldn't. And I know that it's going to drastically shorten my lifespan, most likely, if I continue to live with this disease. But I still do not think that it is okay for animals to be experimented on in laboratories to cure my disease, because I do not believe that my life is worth more than theirs. And I don't think that they should have to suffer for me.
Totally agree with her. Totally agree with her. Okay, so the prompt is vegans are better human beings than meat eaters. Yes, I would say yes. I mean, for the most part. Let's say you have a vegan who is a serial killer and you have a meat eater who is not a serial killer. Well, the meat eater is clearly a better human being, in my opinion, than the vegan. But if you have a vegan serial killer and a meat-eating serial killer, then the vegan serial killer is a better human being than the meat-eating serial killer. This is a question that brings on a lot of assumptions, because you don't know all of what somebody is and what they do. You could have somebody who is a vegan and they're doing a lot for certain issues like animal rights and the environment and personal health, but you don't know what else they're like. Maybe they're really rude. Maybe they're a bully. You have a meat eater who is not, it was one of the kindest people we ever met. I would say the meat eater is a better human being in that case. So you just don't know just based on like one thing alone. But if you are comparing two people who are basically the same people, and one's a vegan and one's not, the vegan, I would say, is a better human being.
I think what this comes down to is what we define as a good human being. At the end of the day, I don't see, for instance, trapping animals, killing animals, using animals for our own human gain as a kind, good, and just thing to do. And my definition of veganism is taking a stance that rejects all sorts of exploitation for all animals. And I think that if we as humans can't accept the principle that other animals are not ours to use and exploit, then we aren't just and we aren't good.
I agree. I believe that there can be exceptions, and I think they're extremely rare. Like if somebody was on the brink of death and it was proven to only be because they're eating a vegan diet, or if they're living in indigenous societies where, even if it's part of their culture, I don't fully support that, but if it's a type of land that's not fertile to grow crops or harvest crops, these people could be exceptions. But I think that not taking a stand against oppression is always going to make you a worse person than someone that is.
When I think of being kind to animals, I think of all the animals that are used in various ways today as we're speaking. There's animals that are forced to perform into circuses and are beaten with bullhooks and whips to get them to be submissive and perform. There's animals confined to battery cages drowning in their own feces, so humans are able to consume their rotting dead bodies. And this in no way shows kindness or compassion if we make the choice to support these types of this type of abuse and exploitation. We all have a choice to be vegan, to make the right choice, and to reject this rampant, horrific, hideous animal abuse that is happening all around us.
I don't think that being a vegan just makes you a good person because you care about animals. I think that a vegan is, you cannot care at all about animals, but you reject oppression. You're not going to go pay for the systemic slaughter of another individual's life for self-benefit, and I think that objectively that makes
I'm just getting distracted by the fact that this lady keeps like looking to the right. Maybe she's nervous. I probably would do the same thing.
you a better person than
Like, who's she
somebody
looking
willing to
at?
pay for that when they have a choice not to.
All right, can the disagreeer step forward?
I don't think being a good person has really anything to do with your diet or what you're putting in your body. There's good people on both sides of the deal. You don't have to. What I look at as a good person is somebody that does the right thing in their mind. I know what you're going to say, but the right thing for me and the right thing for you are obviously not the same thing, right? Will you argue that?
I would argue you to answer the question, what's right for the animals?
That's not what I'm talking about right now.
I think that's what's important to discuss, though, because they're the ones that are victims in this situation and the ones that are being used.
What we're talking about is what being a good person. There are good people on both sides of the coin. It doesn't matter what you put in your body to get to there. You're a person. You're alive. You can be a person. You can be a great person. It has nothing to do with what you eat.
So if we eat another human being, but everything else we do is completely moral. Does it make us a good person if it has nothing to do with what we eat? I mean, the animal didn't want to die, that person didn't want to die. I just personally don't see the difference.
And the main takeaway here is that you do have a choice. You don't have to support this type of violence and cruelty, but yet people do.
Okay.
And I don't consider that good.
That's
and I would
fine.
not
When it comes to what you support, I mean, that's a tricky argument too, because I also don't feel like people are a bad person for, I said this in another episode before, but just going to Starbucks, for example, while there's been this protest Starbucks movement due to the conflict with Israel and Palestine, I don't think all consumers of Starbucks are bad people because they're giving their money and supporting Starbucks. And you could say that for a lot of companies. So I would never attribute someone's like spending power to who they are as a person.
That's,
Consider that
and
being a
that's
good
like I said
person.
before, that's your opinion. You're allowed to have an opinion. So am I. And me sitting here, I'm not forcing my opinion on you. I really don't care what you think about me. I don't care what you think about what I do.
Do you consider killing an animal a good?
I guess I would just caveat what I just said by saying if you are consciously doing that, I do think that you are better. You're a better human being for that reason, but I don't think you're a bad human being if you don't do that.
Good thing to do?
If it's needed, yes.
Is it needed for you?
Yes.
No.
Absolutely.
I would argue that it's not needed for you because you have choices to make,
But
and
you don't know my
continue to make
situation.
the bad choice.
Well,
Which,
you're sitting in the Jubilee studio in Los Angeles.
Absolutely.
So I feel like you probably have access to a grocery store.
So it's better for me to go to the grocery store
Girl,
and buy a
she keeps doing
hamburger
the mic drops in this
package
episode.
No.
that was killed by somebody,
No,
God knows
hunting
where.
is better than buying meat from the grocery store, but I choose to not eat either kind of
That's
meat.
fine, and that's your choice.
Right, and it's fine for you to have your opinion, me to have my opinion, but the
100%.
reason that one person feels more passionately about it than the other is because one person's choices has victims and the other one's doesn't.
May I chime in? I'd love to add an angle. So when I was on your side for 6 years, I was on your side. So I completely understand where you guys are coming from, where you see this cruelty happening to all of these animals in these factory farms. There are other victims that I could just list right now when I was vegan because I was having crazy temper tantrums. My mood was this. I could not think straight.
Again, I just really want to know what other factors were involved here. I'm not denying everything she's saying, but this seems very extreme, and it seems very extreme to attribute it to the vegan diet.
Because I was having so much brain fog. Victims could include my own mom. I would be very impatient with her, my own boyfriend, right? So if I want to be a good person, I would like to prioritize being a good daughter first. I want to prioritize being a good friend, a good girlfriend, a good partner, a good future mom. And for me, again, it just boils down to health. If the food that I'm feeding my body cannot support that goal of just being a clear thinking, healthy, vibrant person on this planet, then I feel like it, for me, justifies eating meat.
How many of you were raised vegan? Of course, you guys weren't. So my next question is, your parents. Do you consider your parents good people?
My
If you
parents went vegan as soon as I shared my knowledge with them.
But you consider them good people?
Yeah.
I consider my parents people that make poor choices in the sense that they continue to support.
But before
these
you
types of-
even, before your mindset shifted to really caring about the animals, did you still consider them good people?
Yeah, when I thought what they were doing was the right thing, then yes.
Yeah, I mean, my parents are currently vegan, but I think that they were good people before that. And I mean, I was torn on this prompt because I do think when we get to like ranking who's a better person or a worse person, it's just kind of dangerous territory that I don't love because I think good people can do bad things.
Correct. And so that was what I was wanted to tap on, because the one reason that allows me to really impact many lives is because I've never been that type of individual to punish people for not doing what I do. It's never been my thing. But I always like to come at them with a sense of meeting them where they are. Because if we say a good person is this, then if you weren't raised that way, you're saying your parents were inherently bad. They were bad because they were eating meat and then they didn't know about it until later on. Because even my parents, my mom was vegetarian vegan. So if she wasn't, I wouldn't consider her a bad person because I have plenty of my family out like that. They see me as this anomaly, like, I don't know how you do it, but you look good. You're definitely getting your protein. But I'm not going to say, you know what, because you out there are eating and killing animals, I don't like you. But they're family. So I can still make an example and allow them to consider their choices, because that has happened.
Kind of what you said, which is also, I guess, my issue.
100% agree.
Kind of zoomed out is this idea of,
Okay, we haven't heard from this dude since the very beginning. I was wondering when he was going to come on again.
comparing each other's morality, because it's like, yes, you may not consume, an animal product, but there are choices that each person makes, it does contribute to a larger systemic issue that is inherently immoral. Last time you bought a phone, oh, that was mined from minerals from the Congo. Last time you bought gold jewelry, oh, that's from.
Exactly the point I was making with the whole like Starbucks comparison. Like everything you do, like we said in another episode, there's no ethical form of consumption in a capitalist society.
The genocide in Sudan, and just with our taxes, you know, to as regard to Palestine. So there are things that we do that we have to exist in the framework of the system that it is, that we are currently in, that we can all start to measure up morality.
Yeah, I mean, I am against colonialism and I'm against capitalism. This is literally what I got my degree in. And I think there are a lot of changes that everybody could make in their daily life to make them a better person. And I think that some of those changes we can't make right now because the system is oppressing us in a way that disables our free choice. But I just think that if somebody has the same ability to make choices as me and they're choosing to buy a slaughtered animal's corpse, there's nothing good about that. And I fail to see how that doesn't make you a worse person than someone who's not doing that.
So I kind of agree. There's no way that you can be 100%.
I can see myself switch to the other side.
I am not walking forward for that one. I am not. And I went vegan. Part of why I went vegan is I saw these videos. So there's always a video, right? I saw these videos on YouTube explaining explaining the dairy industry and also explaining the egg industry. And after I saw those videos, I said to myself, and I said this out loud, I am never, ever, 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 ever going to have an egg again or dairy again. I'm never having dairy again. I'm never having eggs again, with the occasional, okay, like, oops, there's milk in this and I didn't realize. Okay, but I'm never consciously going back. I'm never going back. If I ever go back to just being a vegetarian, get me some help. Bring me somewhere because I need help. I'm never doing it again. I'm never going back. Well, I like that this lady stepped forward, so maybe she could be vegan. That's very interesting. As I would not, out of all of them, I wasn't expecting her to step forward.
So, you know, diet is not so black and white. I think like when it comes to what you're eating, it's really about the quality of what you're eating and the intention behind why you're eating it, right? So I'm just gonna paint two extreme examples. Let's take a vegan who's living out in the lush environment, maybe along the equator, maybe walks barefoot every day, sees the sun, and is growing this beautiful mango tree that is grown on good soil, receives good sunlight, and they're in a good community. So this person who's eating this fresh mango off the tree, you know, living a very vibrant life. On the other hand, let's take like a corporate city person who's working a 9 to 5, who's sedentary, exposed to constant blue light, who during lunchtime goes through a drive-through, orders a 20 McChicken McNugget chicken nuggets, and is sitting in his car hunched over watching a video on his phone, not even grateful for the food, not even knowing where it comes from. Like, I would say mango eaters probably living a more vibrant, healthy life. So I think it's about like where you're living, the quality of your food, the intention behind it. And I think it's important to not stay dogmatic in your diet. I think that was one of my mistakes when I was vegan.
Well, she's making a lot of sense right now. I have to say that. Until she said was vegan, I didn't realize she also was a former vegan.
Was me thinking like, this is the way, this is the only way. And if this doesn't work out, then I'm doing something wrong, right? And so I came to a point where I had to let go of the vegan hat, the vegan glasses, stop seeing everything through the lens of veganism and prioritize my health, because that's
It's interesting. I don't see everything through the lens of veganism. I don't think. It's just natural, and it's kind of like a second nature thing at this point, just with the way I eat and with the way I buy things as much as possible. Like there's probably some like laundry detergent products that are not vegan that I occasionally get, but it doesn't, I don't feel like I'm seeing the world through that lens because it's just second nature at this point. Maybe by definition I am.
truly what it came down to. Now that I'm eating raw meat, I don't want to just like unpack my bags and say this is the only way and this is how everyone should eat. I think it's just like you take feedback from your body day by day. You understand a little bit deeper about nutrition, about diet, about your body, about the world. And with that information, you make tiny adjustments on the way.
You've been so disconnected with all your words this whole video until now, making some sense.
And I could see myself like indulging into a vegan diet as kind of like I've hammered. There are, from an ideological standpoint, I do agree with a lot of principles.
I feel like this man has been very nuanced this whole episode, and I do appreciate, even though he hasn't said a lot, but in his answers now and the one at the beginning, he's very nuanced. It's not like this is the end all be all. Like he eats meat, but he sees the benefits in the vegan diet. And there's a, flexitarianism is a thing, and that's people who kind of dabble in the vegan world but eat meat on occasion. So, or 50-50, whatever the breakdown is. So I appreciate the nuance in there.
Of veganism, I think for me, like I try to limit how much like meat I purchase, I consume. I tried to dial it back and like kind of wean myself off as frequent as like I used to be. I do still like occasionally and will be like, oh, I want some chorizo, or I want some tacos. Like
Good for the soul.
Indulging in soul food and things like there are I will pivot to that because I mean, one, like it is what I grew up with, and just culturally like what like the meals we would always make or what's always present like at like the cookout and stuff like that. But I wouldn't go so far to say like, oh, I'll never go like vegan entirely. I think I could definitely see myself moving towards that, especially with like the opposition we have to just a greater systemic issue that our current consumption like patterns are within society.
All right, can the disagreeers step forward?
Personally, I can't imagine myself ever eating an animal. And I
I just want to jump in and say one thing that's kind of missing from this whole discussion is vegetarian eating. Like, and I understand a lot of the points made where I like whether or not we should eat animals and whether or not we should eat meat, but they're not really focusing a lot on dairy and eggs and cheese, or cheese is dairy. They're not really focusing on dairy and eggs.
it's just hard for me to imagine. I've dedicated so much of my life now to rescuing animals, and some of my closest friends are non-human animals, and I just couldn't disconnect myself from that to actually engage in eating an animal's dead body. It's just completely unimaginable to me. Animal liberation is what I believe in with every fiber of my being, and I've been arrested 8 times fighting for animal rights. I've investigated
8 times? Okay, I just learned about this lady. I'm sure a lot of people watching probably already knew who she was, but damn, she's dedicated to the cause, and I have so much respect. And I said it already, I'll say it again. Girl, I love you. You are amazing.
Factory farms and slaughterhouses across the country. This is my life, and I'm going to continue fighting for animal liberation until the day I die.
I think for me, it took me getting to the point in my health where it was debilitating. And I bring this up because a lot of people who eat meat again after going vegan, they will never go back to vegan because it just doesn't help their health.
When I investigate these facilities, I engage in disease testing. So I'll take a deceased animal or fecal samples out of these facilities, and I'll send them off to a laboratory for testing. And over and over again, we find they are filled with dangerous bacteria and diseases that are zoonotic and can spread to humans, and are especially putting my life at risk as someone who's immunocompromised, and putting other chronically ill people's lives at risk. And obviously, there's a lot of scientific evidence that dairy and other animal products cause autoimmune disease.
Yes, studies may say one thing, but do they really say it caused it, right? So let's not make these blanket statements. You love talking about black and white. It really
It's not a blanket statement. There's this is just the science, and these are the facts. Research to back this up. There are studies to back this up. A omnivorous or animal-based diet causes so many diseases, so many of the top diseases, like heart disease in particular, cancer, a lot of these foods. And it's not just the animal-based foods, it's oils and stuff like that, of course. But I mean, you can't argue with the science by saying it's a blanket statement.
is not black and white. Just because I'm now...
It's not black and white, but it is a fact. It is a fact that a lot of these animal-based things cause diseases, and it's just a fact. I mean, she told you she sees the dead animals, and she sees the disease inside of them. Like, you can see the disease inside of them. It's facts, lady.
Only eating meat, does it mean everybody else has to? Don't make that assumption.
I still don't understand what you mean by only eating meat. Where the hell is your fiber? And the other lady too. You do know you cannot get fiber from animals. I'm not saying that just to say that to be an annoying vegan. Like, you literally can't get fiber from animals. You have to get fiber from plants, vegetables, and fruits. So what are you doing?
Sure, and I hear that, but what is black and white is an animal's life, or them losing their life. That is black and white.
It's not black and white to me, because if it is at the expense of my health and my mental health, that's where it does become gray for me. It is a hard pill to swallow, I get, because you guys dedicate your lives to this. But for me,
the lady all the way on the right was the annoying one. Now it's this one. And the dude on the left has been pretty annoying, although he's been quiet. I'm sorry, this is the Annoying Vegans channel, not Annoying Meat Eaters channel. But honestly, none of these vegans have really been that annoying, and I really thought that they would be. I thought that they were going to be these preachy vegans, that they were going to be very aggressive. But
I
give them
saw
credit.
I saw clearly when my health deteriorated, and you cannot discredit all the people who also felt the same.
My entire life, I was not vegan. I was not vegetarian my entire life. I ate animal products, and I came to the conscious decision that it is in my power to not eat animal products or animal flesh, like most people have the ability to choose, and I stopped, and I realized that's wrong, and I would never, ever go back to harming any animal when there's no need for me to do so. Does it take effort to make a conscious choice when society's default is to eat these animal products that are being massively promoted by these large industries? Sure, it can be difficult, but is it worthwhile? And does it meaningfully impact the lives of animals who are suffering every single day? Absolutely. And I think that's what's important to remember.
Yeah. There are also some vegans who would choose an animal's life over their own health. I've never been put in that situation, so I can't honestly tell you what my decision would be. But there are people who believe if they were on a deserted island with just a pig, they would let themselves die because they don't think it's their right to take any other being's life. So, I mean, in terms of health, if my health was deteriorating, I'm inclined to believe that I would let it deteriorate
I
rather
would
than
too.
eat animals.
I would 100%.
let yourself
I
deteriorate.
would.
That's what I believe I would do right now. When I was
So-
in this situation, I can't answer honestly because I've never been in this situation. But when the prompt asks if I could ever imagine myself eating animals, that's the reason I answered no.
Because my life is not more important than that animal. I'm sorry. That animal is not actively harming me or killing me. If I'm defending myself against being actively killed, yes, I would defend myself. If I have to kill an animal that's killing me so that I survive, then yes, I would do that. But I wouldn't kill an animal who's doing nothing to harm me just because I am starving and I need to eat. And that animal had done nothing wrong to deserve that. It's not their fault that I am here starving. It's just not. So no, I would not. I would let myself starve to death. I really would.
I imagine myself letting myself die before I ate an animal.
That's
I
okay.
just
That's where we
felt
disagree.
like a
Yeah.
sink in my gut because it's like you really don't value your life enough
No, because
to
I'm not a
choose your
human
life.
supremacist.
I wouldn't be able to live with myself after having killed the animal. And guess what? If you're thinking about a practical situation, if I'm stuck on an island and there's one pig there and I eat the pig, I'm gonna get that's only gonna last me so long. Give it a couple more days. Now what? I'm still hungry. I gotta eat something, don't I?
But it's your life. This is like your
Why am
There's no
like
need.
you don't value yourself. You don't value your health.
I love myself.
Can you stop it with the don't value yourself? Okay. She's back to being the annoying one again. I value myself and I love myself so much that I wouldn't kill somebody, including an animal.
I value my life
But you
greatly,
wouldn't
but not
take
at the
care of
expense of
yourself.
somebody else's.
The vegan diet, I feel like it's reasonable to consider it an ideology. It's reasonable to consider it like, a belief, but to consider it healthy is a different topic. To consider it like a healthier diet, the healthy way.
Well, I'm not
I
in
feel
it
like
for
that's
health
just
or the
kind
diet.
of
I'm in it for
dangerous
animal
to
liberation. I
promote.
keep saying this.
Like you'd say you would choose an animal's life.
How is it dangerous? I mean, look at Tori over there. This dude is buff as fuck. And I'm not sure if he did it for the animals, but clearly he's getting his protein, like he said earlier. This woman over here is not doing it for the health. She's doing it for the animals. For you to argue that it's not for the health because of the fact that she's doing it with the animals doesn't make any sense.
Over your own health, over your own life. Like that is self-harm to me. That is oppressing yourself.
Is it
Like it's-
self-harm?
You're selling your soul,
If,
And
as we've seen in genocides and holocausts throughout history, mothers choose to protect their offspring,
Of refusing to harm something else, someone else, some other living thing, does not mean that I do not value myself. Point blank, period. Sorry, that's just the way it is. I value myself so much and I value my morals so much that I wouldn't do that.
before they save their own life. What is the difference here? Just that one speaks a different language than you? Is that a form
because
of
this
self-harm?
animal would eat you, would kill you.
My
you know?
dog's never
Like,
going to eat me. A fox is never going to eat me. A cow's never going to eat me. A pig's never going to eat me.
Well,
I
there
had a
are
pig
animals
live in my
that
house
would.
for 12 years. He never ate me. I mean, I would choose him over myself.
There's definitely animals that would eat you.
Yes, there are,
You know,
but
like-
this isn't the scenario we're talking
So
about.
I just believe that our health is a priority, and that if you're subtracting your health for another animal to live so that they could be eaten by another animal.
Again, she goes to this whole thing where she thinks she is a savior because she is saving an animal from being eaten by another animal. You're taking food away from that other animal, the predator, who is a natural predator that would have eaten that prey. You keep going on to this point and you think you're a superhero. You're not saving anybody. You're trying to justify your actions and you're trying to make yourself feel better. You realize how much harm you're causing, not just to that animal that you're eating, but to the animal, to the predator that needs that animal for food. Have you ever thought about that, lady?
just feel like that's dehumanizing
But I just
yourself.
think that is an abstract. And
Yeah, because I'm not subtracting my health right now. I'm just giving my answer to the prompt. If I can imagine myself doing it, no. Is it happening now? Also no.
Yeah, I know. I'm just very like passionate about this, and just hearing that you would choose the animal's life over your own like really struck a chord within me, because at the end of the day, our middle ground is that we are all humans. We're all living this life. We all have this one chance, and our health is the most important thing. And if we're not, you know, doing what we can to take care of our health, and instead, you know, fueling these ideologies in the expense of our health, like, I just feel like that's just like, I can't help but feel that human compassion, you know, like.
I don't know. I guess I have the same amount of compassion as you, but it just extends beyond humans, because that's how I feel when I face someone eating a dead body on their plate every day, and I see that. That's how you feel about me right now. Like, you're thinking about my health deteriorating. I'm thinking about that life that once was.
I think it's great that we were all able to come together today and share our different perspectives, and I want to make sure it's clear that, you know, I have a lot of respect for everyone, no matter where they're coming from. And what I'm fighting for is animal liberation and a mass shift away from depending on animal agriculture. That's a world that I'm fighting for. I'm not fighting against any individual here or anyone who might be watching at home who might eat animals. I'm fighting against a massive system.
And I just love that we're having this conversation, openly discussing these polar opposite topics, but still being able to find a middle ground. So I really appreciate that.
Veganism is for the privileged.
Okay, so the prompt is veganism is for the privileged. Yes and no. I became vegan in 2018, and for the whole amount of time that I was vegan, and even honestly vegetarian and pescatarian, I was with a stable job, and I was making good, steady income. So I was able to afford groceries, and I was able to afford to splurge a little bit on food. Do you need to splurge in order to be vegan? No, absolutely you do not. You can be vegan and you can still have a budget-friendly diet. We talked about that on a few episodes ago and many other times about how you can be vegan on a budget. It is for the privilege in the sense that you do need to have access to it, whether it's the farmland or whether it's the grocery store, whether it's a good grocery store that has fresh produce and fresh ingredients, because that's exactly what you need to make it cheap. Or, you know, you need to have access to finances if you want, if you're willing to buy the more processed stuff. And I was younger and growing up and living under, you know, my mother's roof, like I wouldn't have ever been able to choose where I got my food because she was buying the groceries, and whatever money she had is what she would spend. So in terms of like becoming vegan, you do need to kind of like, it's not very easy for children to do it, I don't think, if they're growing up in a household. I mean, they can honestly come home and say like, hey, you know what, I decided I'm going to go vegan. And, you know, their parents might say, you eat what I give you. You're not leaving this table unless you clear your plate. Like, you live under my roof. They could get that kind of pushback, or maybe their parent would be accommodating for it. But at the same time, like, that's a level of privilege too. Like, if their parent's able to afford being able to have two separate diets in the household because that's what the child wants. So there's a level of privilege in terms of age and just like establishing yourself.
I personally believe a vegan diet, if you actually want to thrive and be healthy on this lifestyle, it's not cheap. It is not the most affordable diet at all. And I will tell you, being a carnivore, eating only meat, eating only animal foods, my grocery bill is less than when I was shopping for vegan. So I recognize that to eat only plants and only fruits and only grains and all of these starches, the grocery bills add up. So that's why I do believe that you do have to be quite privileged, especially if you want to feed your family as well, to be able to afford a vegan diet and also thrive on it.
There is like an accessibility.
It depends what you're eating. We've been over this a few times before, but if you're getting beans in rice and fresh, like sweet potatoes, potatoes are quite filling. Let's be real. All of that is cheaper than a thing of steak. Okay, a block of tofu is cheaper than a thing of steak. It just is. But if you're getting that processed food, the Beyond Burger, like, of course, that's more expensive. And they're definitely marking up a lot of the prices, especially when the supply is lower than the demand. So I'm not gonna, deny the fact that being vegan can definitely be very expensive. Eating out at vegan restaurants can be very, very expensive as well. But it's not the end all be all. And there's ways to make it cheaper than even buying meat. And like we discussed a few episodes ago in the Cheap Ass Vegans episode, Make It Dairy Free went vegan for budgeting reasons and saved so much money when they were buying vegan food. So it all depends which kind of food you buy.
Discussion just from socioeconomics of affordability, as we kind of talked about before, food deserts as well. Like, there are these realities and nuances to it that should be acknowledged. And I personally am not too familiar with typical cost of having a vegan diet. I'm always had meat in some aspect within my diet. That is, what we grew up with, and it was often the cheaper option. And as I buy my groceries now as an adult, it's definitely what I go to in terms of like, calorie and nutrients per dollar kind of thing in my head. I do acknowledge that I do have a lot of ignorance towards like the nutrition aspect of it, of a vegan diet. I've never had those like resources or taken the time, I guess I should say, to access those resources.
All right. Can the disagree step forward?
I like that he clarified taking the time. That's he's an honest man.
I want to start off by saying that a vegan diet and a plant-based diet is vastly cheaper than one that relies on animal flesh and secretions. Pasta, beans, potatoes, bread, lettuce. All of these items are usually very affordable and staples in most of our diets, I would assume. The real privilege that comes into play with this prompt is the fact that some people think they are privileged enough to take another's life when they have other options available to them.
I'm not sure that's a definition of privilege she's talking about.
I would say in this situation, when we're talking about privilege as a whole and being privileged enough, quote unquote, to have a vegan diet, the real privilege we should be talking about in this group discussion is the privilege people feel that they're able to and entitled to buy animal products from these animals that have suffered.
And when it comes to being privileged, the opposite thing is being oppressed, right? So access to high quality nutrient dense food is used as a tool of oppression. So I'm Vietnamese and my parents are immigrants from Vietnam. They lived there throughout the height of the war. And so living in a third world country, especially during a tough time, meant that good food was rare. Meat was a luxury. People were pretty much forced against their will to go vegan. Vegan options such as rice, potatoes, wheat, nuts, dried fruits, maybe some veggies, that was all they had access to or could afford. And you see this throughout history. In many other countries during times of war, what happens? There's heavy food rationing. Heavy food rations, specifically on the nutrient-dense foods such as
Sometimes
meat
she makes a
eggs,
lot
and
of
dairy,
sense, I gotta
because
say.
These foods are reserved for the
Sometimes
people on the
she's
front lines,
totally
for
crazy.
the people who have the resources or the connections to get them. And then for everyone else, us ordinary citizens, us peasants, we're forced to eat the cheap fillers, the corn, the soy, the rice, the wheat, the potatoes, the fruits and veggies. And so it just goes to show during times of oppression, meat is a privilege. The vegan diet is forced upon people and is the unfortunate harsh reality for people who are actually oppressed.
That's how I looked at it when I saw privilege. I was like, meat clearly was considered a privilege. You had to be king and queens to eat that. The peasants were supposed to eat just bread and things of that nature. And, you had the Daniel fast, the Daniel diet, all these different things. Meat was not even considered there. It was more so, like I said, it was of privilege. So when I heard the prompt, that's the first thing that came to my mind was, clearly, meat is considered a privilege.
First of all, vegan diet to the average American citizen isn't more expensive. I literally live in a trailer with 3 dogs. I am on EBT food stamps, and I eat 140 grams of protein a day. I track everything I eat, and I would say I spend less than $8 a day on my groceries. A block of tofu has 90 calories to 10 grams of protein, costs $1.75, and there's 5 servings of that in each block that costs $1.75. And the cheapest groceries throughout history have been rice and beans, which are both full of nutrients, and also soy, which you call a filler food, even though it's a complete protein.
Actually, you initially said, and you made your point, that there's no way eating animal flesh is going to be cheaper than eating only plants. So the difference for me is when I eat only plants, I feel hungry about 30 minutes after I ate. When I eat only meat, I feel hungry same time next day. So in my head, when I do the math, I'm actually spending less actual dollars on my grocery bills because I need less food because meat is so nutrient dense. And I will confirm that yes, my vegan diet grocery bills were cheaper than now my carnivore diet grocery bills. And that's exactly what's happening there. That's why.
I mean, that's a good point. It's not more nutrient dense, though. It's just more dense is the thing. And you are going to be fuller when you eat like the same amount of meat. You're going to need to have more vegetables to be fuller. Yes, that is true. You need to eat more as a vegan. You need to eat more portions. You need to eat bigger plates so that you can stay full. But the reason for that is because just a small amount of meat is so dense, but it's not nutrient dense. All of the caloric intake that you would have with plants is full of nutrients, but it takes less density to achieve those nutrients.
That isn't true for everybody. I mean, I get 13,000 steps a day, and I'm a weightlifter. I'm in the gym for 1 to 2 hours every single day, and I'm not hungry after I eat. I mean, I eat nutritious protein-packed options like tempeh, seitan, and tofu that leave me feeling full. And there is a poor way to eat a vegan diet that doesn't leave you feeling full, and I believe that might be what you're experiencing if you had that.
I ate a whole foods plant-based diet.
That's not necessarily healthy, though. I don't think that whole foods plant-based is
So you're saying eating
great.
seitan?
Okay, you lost me. How is a whole foods plant-based diet not healthy?
And what else? What's the other
Yeah,
process?
do you know what seitan is made out of?
I do know what it is. It has a
It's
very long
fermented
ingredients
beans.
list. And tofu is healthy for you?
Yeah,
Not at
it's
all. There's
processed
so many
soybeans.
GMOs. It's not
Tofu-
good for
Tofu
you.
is definitely healthy for you, and so is tempeh. There's not a lot of processed GMOs. Seitan, it depends how it's made. But seitan generally is pretty healthy. It's phyto-weak, and if you're gluten-free, it's not healthy. The large ingredient list that you're thinking of is probably from those already made things. But if you're making your own seitan, which who has time for that? But if you are, then there's not going to be a whole lot of an ingredient list. I don't understand what the lady on the left here is saying when she's saying that whole food plant-based is not healthy.
It's not true. Tofu is a staple in plenty of Asian cultures that's been around for
Asian.
thousands of years.
It's not good for your health.
Organic tofu is
It
good for your
really
health.
ruins your
Oh,
hormones.
not
That is
you
not, that is a myth.
white-splaining
The
to
type of
the Asian.
estrogen that is in tofu is completely different from human estrogen, and it's ironic for you to say that when you're drinking breast milk from cows.
Okay. Firstly, you don't know what I'm eating in my carnivore diet. I don't drink breast milk from cows. I actually
milk from any
do not
animal.
eat dairy right now because it inflames me. So
What the hell what the hell does this lady eat? She's like, I don't eat anything except for meat. I don't eat, so you don't, what do you drink?
you actually mentioned healing from autoimmune issues. The carnivore diet and eating only meats is actually renowned for reversing autoimmune issues. And this whole community stay with this diet because they're finally, for the first time in their life, getting healthy again. But I also understand your point. Even though I still won't eat meat because I support all of this. I'm just saying that my carnivore diet grocery bills are absolutely cheaper than my vegan diet grocery bills. And I was eating a whole foods plant-based diet. So maybe I am wrong that a whole foods plant-based diet is not healthy or the best way to go about a vegan diet. I did not eat a single processed mock meat junk food that
Tofu,
they label
seitan,
vegan.
and tempeh aren't processed mock
Fine,
meat.
I didn't try those either. But when I ate whole foods plant-based, I felt hungry all the time. So maybe it just didn't work for me.
I do feel hungry a lot, and that's why I eat bigger portions. But if I want to stay full, I usually rely on chickpeas and potatoes and nut butters. I do agree that I have a big appetite, and it depends what you eat.
I just
Yeah, no,
quickly want to jump in that my chronic illness is incurable. No dietary change is going
May I
to
know
cure
what
it.
it's called?
It's called type 1 diabetes. And
Okay. There's a lot of people that have actually managed type 1 diabetes by eating only meat.
I understand that
Oh my Lord, you did not just say, hey, join the carnivore so you can cure your diabetes.
you can manage it.
Yes. No, I recognize
But
it's
I just
very-
want to make
yeah.
sure that it's clear it's
Absolutely.
incurable and people shouldn't, go off life-saving medication to try to.
But
Yes, I agree with that. I 100% agree. You don't go off of life-saving medication.
a lot of people have.
I know a lot of
Yeah,
people
because
have
they
gone
can.
off.
Yeah.
Not for my disease. It's,
Understood.
It's impossible. No one with my disease can do that. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, so we're not spreading something that's potentially dangerous.
Well, thank you for sharing because I wasn't sure what autoimmune
Yeah,
issue.
it's okay. Yeah, no, that's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're missing the point. Sometimes we take our personal experiences and apply it to the world. That's not necessarily the case. Just because someone isn't carnivore and they've saved their life doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to do the same for another individual. Same thing when it goes to vegan. Just because this person says vegan and wants to change their life and their health is phenomenal, that doesn't mean, hey, Bella, you need to go back to being vegan.
Oh,
That's
absolutely,
what
I agree.
You're saying it didn't work for you. And then back to the privilege. I mean, I was raised poor, vegan, vegetarian, and so I don't see how that cost me more. I still was able to, I'm here today. So my mom didn't have that access to buying, easily buying food and whatever. I had to even go live with my grandparents because my mother couldn't afford to raise me and my brother by herself. So privilege, no, I don't see living as a vegan, since we have that terminology now, we all love labels. Since being as a vegan, that I was any more privileged than anyone else.
I think
Drop the mic on them, Tori.
I think a different type of privilege that I think would be important to acknowledge with your story is that you did have that access to that information, to that lifestyle, even if it
through
wasn't.
parents.
Yeah, through your parents. Like you did have that within proximity.
Okay, you could argue that anyone is privileged in any way. I mean, you might not be physically in a privileged scenario, but have access to information, and that might not even be access on the internet. That might just be access through your parents. So yeah, in a way, like we all have privilege in one way or another.
Accessibility to that information. Like you shared a lot of good information, and like I think for me, I feel like an issue I often have, or at least my perception for a lot of, I guess, vegan cuisine is preparation and mealtime and stuff like that. Typically does deter me from, a lot of certain like meals and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that lack of access to knowledge is one of the only reasons that I can understand why someone isn't vegan. We have pretty good
Oh
access to
shoot,
knowledge.
she just
in this
dropped
country,
a
especially
bomb on them.
people that I talk to in my day-to-day life, but I do acknowledge that that is a big issue, and yeah, I think that bridge should be worked to be closed.
Thank you so much. You can just shake hands there.
Okay, that was weird the way they ended that. They were like, you can just shake hands. What? They can't hug? Sometimes they like to hug. Like, I've seen other episodes. Okay, they're hugging. They're hugging. Okay, I don't know what that was, but that was weird. Final reactions on this episode. There's just a couple of things that I felt were missing for me. Well, there's really just one key thing that I think was missing for me, and that is the whole discussion about dairy and eggs. Because a lot of it was just focused on meat eating. It was like, you know, this or that. It was black and white. But like, we didn't get into a lot of discussion about like why even eating you know, animal products, not necessarily animals themselves, but animal derived food. We didn't get into like why the vegans have decided to avoid that type of cuisine, that type of food, while the other side does not. So it would have been nice to have that touched on a little bit more. And then the other thing that I think would have been more interesting, maybe not for this episode, but for a different episode, would have been vegans versus vegetarians or flexitarians, pescatarians. A cool idea might be to have a round table, like a panel with one vegan, one vegetarian, one pescatarian, one flexitarian, and a meat eater, and have similar prompts to these, and just have a discussion amongst those people. Everybody is from a different kind of lifestyle and diet. I'd be interested to see where the agreements and disagreements are, and I think that would be an interesting discussion. I would love to have that on our channel. Really thought that the vegans were going to be a little bit more annoying, so I'm happy that they were not, and I thought that a lot of the meat eaters were going to be kind of like similar in their views, but Nat was pretty nuanced. Even though he didn't speak up a lot, he was very kind of like seeing the other side. Two ladies kind of went back and forth with me. Sometimes they were making sense. Most of the time they were really kind of, especially the one with the red dress, like she was saying some crazy wild stuff to justify the fact that like you're a savior to animals by killing animals because they might be killed by other animals is just crazy. Makes no sense. The guy on the left, he didn't really speak too much either, except for the times when he did, which he was saying he was regurgitating a lot of those talking points that we hear all the time that really have been debunked quite often. So yeah, I really wanted to be unbiased, and I really didn't want to think that the meat eaters would be the annoying ones here, but I kind of feel like they were. I do think it was a really cool discussion though, and I like that they were mostly respectful. Like there wasn't a lot of fighting. There wasn't any fighting really. Real big fan of Zoe. I'm going to give her a follow. I didn't know who she was. Now I know a lot more about her, and the fact that she got arrested 8 times, my goodness, that's somebody who's dedicated to the cause. I already knew who Tori was, but Zoe got a new follow out of me. So yeah, I'd be curious to hear how other people feel about this episode. I know there's a lot of talk about it in the vegan community right now. And I know there's also a lot of talk about having like a part 2. Lifting Vegan Logic had said and voiced that he would like to be on there, as well as some doctors who would like to be on there from either side. So that could be very interesting to have a part 2 sooner rather than later, because it's been several years since they had their last vegan episode. So let me know what you guys think about this. Put your thoughts in the comments section. Please give this video a thumbs up or a thumbs down, whatever your heart tells you to do. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, and we will see you on the next one. We are going to have an interview coming up soon with the colorful Courtney. And for those who don't know, for a very quick preview into that, she is a vegan consultant who introduces vegan recipes to non-vegan restaurants, among many, many other things that she does. So stay tuned for that. We had Alex in the studio for that. He will be back. I know a lot of you are missing Alex dearly. He will be back very soon. So I hope that you all have a great day, and I will see you on the next one.